Evening and welcome to the regular City Council meeting. It is Monday, September 12th, 2022 at 7 o'clock p.m. We are now called to order. Would all rise for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as distributed?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Next up, approval of the minutes. The minutes are printed on pages 6 through 9 of the packet. Are there any revisions or corrections to the minutes as distributed? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. The minutes are approved as distributed. First up on our agenda, we have visitors' comments. I don't see any visitors, but we would generally have scheduling of visitor comments on agenda items. Would any member of the audience like to address the council on any agenda items? Seeing no one. General visitor comments. Would any member of the audience like to address the council on any matter whatsoever? Hearing none. We will move on to the approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda begins with the memo on page 10 of the packet and concludes with a resolution on page 29. The resolution before us calls for the approval of the following consent agenda items. The following budgeted purchases in excess of $25,000 to Eaton Cannon Technologies for 300 AM water nodes to be funded by 2023 funds, and metering and technology solutions for 200 meter head and body. The following advisory board position, Scott Zarn to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a term of 2022 through 2024. The following employee appointment, Tyler Hokeson as a patrol officer at the wage listed in the packet. And the following temporary licenses approved contingent upon payment of licensing fee and compliance with city code regulations. The dates are printed in the packet. A temporary soft drink license for Rock Bend Folk Fest, a temporary show license for Rock Bend Folk Fest, a temporary on-sale liquor license for the St. Peter Ambassadors, a temporary dance license for the St. Peter Ambassadors, and temporary tobacco license for Smolder Cigar Emporium, as well as the schedule of disbursements for August 18th, 2022 through September 7th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there any discussion of any items on the consent agenda? Brad?
So Todd, I'm not sure if this happened last year as well with Rock Bend, the retroactive approval of the licenses.
I don't know for sure, but it has happened in the past.
There was another event. I
Yep.
don't remember.
We've had that happen.
Okay, just I think in the future, if you could remind them just to get it submitted on time. Obviously, we're going to approve it, but we shouldn't really have to approve things retroactively, typically.
I agree with you. We work with them very closely. As you know, it's a volunteer organization, and we try and pull them along on these issues, and, well, we do. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I'll
Daryl?
second that motion.
Oh, yes. Any other questions? So we have a motion and a second. The resolution before us is on page 29 of the packet. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Bruflat.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Rand.
Aye.
Councilmember Sherstrom.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, under new business, adoption of a resolution unfinished business, we have none. So new business, adoption of a resolution authorizing preliminary engineering for St. Julian Street, Old Minnesota Avenue Improvement Project. And Pete is here to talk to us about this.
Madam Mayor and City Council, here we are in 2023 talking about the St. Julian Roundabout. It was just 10 short years ago that we started this conversation. And what we're here tonight to ask you to do is to approve the resolution on page 34, which gives us the ability to work with our design engineer to put together a project that would accommodate the construction of a roundabout, as you can see on the screen there. The planning for this intersection has gone on quite a while. As you know, we've gone through several MnDOT projects with this, and we have worked with them closely on how elevations and design would work to accommodate the traffic for future buildings and future traffic, both with vehicle traffic and with foot traffic. What's important to remember with this project is that back in 2012 and 2013, when we did the traffic study, it was identified that a roundabout would be the selected intersection of choice. Then we started working on purchasing land, and that did take quite a while. There wasn't a lot of pressure to get everything done, but working with new development as it came in, including the Holiday gas station, McDonald's has been redone since that time, so we have already worked with a lot of the businesses in the area to accommodate their growth and their changes. We've also worked with the properties in the northwest corner as far as exchange of property and tenants that they have had come and go in those areas. The southwest quadrant, which is what we call the Hallett's Pond area, of course, has been owned by Northern ConAg the whole time. They've been really great on the process. We've worked with the developer now that owns that property to make sure we can accommodate their growth. What's important in that part of the intersection is that we do have to install deep sanitary sewer coming off of St. Julian Street to accommodate the Wilberg property, which would then allow for 3 additional buildings or lots to be developed through that area there. Some of the things that we're also looking at in here is stormwater. We're going to have some stormwater improvements that are developed because of this intersection. Those will impact not only what we do with Brown Street, but what else we do as far as development of the properties both north and south of Brown Street. And so what we're looking to do is finalize that design. We're going to use the 2014. We did start the design of that intersection back in 2014, and we have about 60% of the project designed. We'll use that as a guide as we go forward to help us finish up that project. We were successful also in getting some grant funds in here, as you know, ATP funds, area transportation plan funds, and so that'll help minimize some of the cost as we go forward. And I believe we have everything itemized out here as far as the cost for the engineering. It's my request tonight that you approve the resolution on page 34 and that we move forward with design of the project.
Thank you, Pete. Any questions for Pete? Daryl?
What year are the federal funds in? What federal fiscal year?
I do not know that off the top of my head. I believe we have another summer yet to get that accomplished.
So 25 probably?
Right. They aren't the driver as much as the sanitary sewer is for the development.
To early let, late award, or early let, so you can spend your federal funds in front?
Right.
Thank you. Far ahead.
Other questions? Hearing none, the resolution before us on page 34 of the packet calls for authorizing Bolton and Menk to provide engineering for an improvement project at the intersection of St. Julian Street and Old Minnesota Avenue. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Sherstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Ruffin.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, adoption of a resolution approving development of a feasibility study for an improvement project on West Park Row.
Madam Mayor and City Council, as you have before you, a submittal from our engineering firm to do a feasibility report for Park Row Street between South 3rd and South Washington. This is the first step of the assessment process for the project that we are looking at in that area there. You will have 28 to 30 properties that will be impacted by the decisions that we make going forward. Part of it is we want to have Bolton and Menk evaluate what we need to do down there to see if it is feasible. As you guys remember from our North 3rd Street project, this is part of the 429 process. We will then put together cost estimates, assessment rolls, feasibility report will basically identify all the needs in that area. We will work closely with our engineering firm on that. We have been doing a little bit of background work the last couple of summers to accommodate the engineering as it does go forward. And then also on page 36, you can kind of see the schedule as we go forward here that will allow us to break down the cost, have some public informational meetings, and then work with the citizens along there that are impacted. The city does have money budgeted, so it's a little bit of a balancing act, a little bit different than what we have done in the past. But we are into a street section right now that we know we're gonna have improvements that are more in-depth than what we've encountered in the past. So to give you an idea, in the past, we've milled off the top couple inches of asphalt and been able to use a variety of the base and materials that are left on site. This street doesn't have that type of construction. We did some soil borings in there because we were a suspect of what was going on, and it is going to be more in depth to complete what we need to do. But as you travel that road, you'll see that it does need an upgrade, especially with stormwater drainage along that line. There's not a large degree of water and sewer upgrades to be done in that area, so that should minimize the cost. And as I mentioned before, we do have about 28 to 30 properties that will be impacted along that line. So we'll be putting our assessment policy to the test and working out some of the finer details of that. I'm asking that you approve the resolution on page 37 and that we allow Bolton and Mink to do a feasibility study for us to start the process.
Thank you, Pete. Any questions for Pete? Carrie?
I have a question related to our regular street improvement program and how projects are prioritized. Does that happen on an annual basis, or was this prioritized in the past? Which streets would be targeted first?
A little bit of both. There's a balancing act with the budgeted funds that we have. If you guys remember, we had our city engineer do a water main distribution system assessment. We identified 10 blocks of water main that need to be replaced in the next 10 years or so. With that process, we developed a priority scale related to whether the sanitary sewer needed to be corrected, whether the water main needed to be replaced. Those would be key drivers in an overall street project, because the deeper your utility goes, the wider your trench is at the top, more of your street is disturbed. And believe it or not, we had an opening this year in order to, that we didn't have a huge utility need there because we already have utility money budgeted for South Minnesota Avenue for the MnDOT project. And so moving this project around, it was one of the top 3 that we needed to do. Whether we did it this year or next year, it's a balancing act with our funds. This year is the year that 23 is when we plan to do the work.
Thank you. Any other questions? Daryl?
Is this full contractor, or is this a hybrid with city forces and a contractor?
It's going to be a combination of both. What we anticipate the engineer will find is that the complete base of the street needs to be installed. We do have some budgeted money for asphalt replacement. We are probably going to contract for curb and gutter and alley entrances and driveways. So it'd be similar to what we did on 4th Street, except for we'll have a little more manpower in to control the cost related to base removal.
Other questions? Hearing none, the resolution before us on page 37 of the packet calls for authorizing Bolton and Mink to prepare feasibility study for improvements to Park Row from South 3rd Street to Washington Avenue, to South Washington Avenue. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Sherstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Bluefett,
Aye.
Councilmember DeBosk.
Aye.
The resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
I
Next.
apologize, Madam Mayor. May I go and lock the door? I had a concerned 11-year-old citizen say that our meeting is not open.
Oh, no.
Somebody stuck their head in there just a few moments ago.
Okay. A very concerned person sent me a message that the doors are all locked.
I
Maybe
know
that's who
somebody
was pulling
tried
on
this
this
one
one. and-
That
Probably.
must be. Oh.
Huh.
Some young
Maybe
people
it's-
interested in civics. We appreciate that.
I apologize. Carry on.
Next up, adoption of a resolution approving issuance of a facade renovation revolving loan to Hotel LLC, Peter Tanis.
Mayor and members, if I can cover this one for you, this is an item that has been reviewed and recommended by the HPC and the Economic Development Authority. It hasn't been a little bit out of its, what we would prefer to see, its normal process, but everything's lined up now, and as with all loans through the EDA, they have to be finally approved by the City Council. This is set up through a program that was approved about 5 or 6 years ago to assist downtown business owners who want to make improvements or make repairs to historic properties. The goal of the program is to provide a less costly way, a more financially efficient way to continue to preserve the historic downtown. In this instance, you have an application from Peter Tanis, who owns the Nicollet Hotel at 122 South Minnesota Avenue. He's requested $10,000, which meets the program requirements. As you may know, program requirements say that it's 0% interest. The term of the note cannot exceed 5 years. There's a number of other criteria, like promissory note and those types of things. But in addition, the city funds or the Economic Development Authority funds under this program can only comprise 50% of the total project. And the applicant's project was $20,465. There's great information included in your packet, and the resolution is also included. Again, this is a $10,000 loan, a 5-year amortization at 0 interest with all the appropriate documentation in place. It has been approved by the HPC and by the EDA, and the resolution is included in your packet on page 40.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Todd? Hearing none, the resolution before you calls for approving a $10,000 facade renovation / historical enhancement revolving loan to Peter Tanis, Nicollet Hotel LLC to partially finance the replacement of 7 exterior windows. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Bettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpstra,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Nolan.
Aye. The resolution is approved. Next up, adoption of a resolution authorizing purchase of culinary equipment for the fire station project.
Mayor members, this is, I hope not an unusual one, but it is so far because you haven't had a lot of these. And so this is part of the fire station project, and as you may recall, these 2 issues are items which were originally bid, and recommendation from staff and agreement of the council was that the bids at that time be rejected. And so we used an alternative proposal method to receive bids. Technically, this is something that, based on your approval of your new purchase agreement, that could have kind of been on the consent agenda. But the reason I'm bringing them to you this way is because you had bid it previously and rejected the bids. So at least from my perspective, it's nice to be as transparent as we can and make sure that we're covering in the loop and making sure that people know what's going on. And what you have here is a proposal from Cullinex from Fargo, North Dakota to provide stainless steel tables, sinks, and a disposer for the cost of $12,258. In addition, a separate proposal for a range hood system. So this is the hood with the fire suppression, smoke removal, and things that goes over the stove. And that is for $19,499. You'll see some additional information in your packet on pages 42 and 43, but the resolution on page 44 provides for its approval utilizing project funds, which has been planned for these type of items. One other note, if I may, Madam Mayor, you'll see some other things like this continue to roll through. And my plan is to, as those things that were bid but rejected come in, we'll handle it in this manner. If they weren't as part of the bid project and they fit within your purchasing policy, they'll come in either as a separate purchase like this or under the consent agenda, whatever's appropriate relative to the rules within your purchase policy. So that's kind of the plan going forward. And you won't see this every time, but you'll see more and more of these things, tables and chairs and lots of different things that will come along with this project.
Well, thanks, Todd. Any questions for Todd? Brad?
Do you recall what the original bid was on it that we rejected?
Yeah, so I can't tell you exactly because this does include stainless steel tables which weren't part of the bid, but were included in this to match the sink and disposer. One of these categories, I believe, is a little bit less, and one is just a little bit more. And so it's about a wash relative to where your bids were. As you may recall, the bids on the total project related to these kind of kitchen materials, which included a range and included refrigerators, it also included dishwashing system, was approximately $64,000. That's these two items plus a few more things that haven't come up yet.
Any other questions? Hearing none, the resolution before us on page 44 of the packet calls for approving purchase of culinary equipment for the fire station project. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Grant,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Bluefett,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, adoption of a resolution authorizing city assistance for Oktoberfest.
Mayor and members, you'll find this information starting on page 45 within your packet, and this is a request. So let me provide some clarification. Really, the reason the request comes to you is because they're looking to do three things that would fall within your purview. Generally, an event of this type located on the fairgrounds that didn't need any assistance from you would not come in front of you because, well, you don't own the fairgrounds. But since they're asking for use of picnic tables, as they did when they were located the event on parking lot number 5, as they're looking for use of the portable light standards, again, which is, they also use those on parking lot number 5, and they're looking to have what is termed here as a parade walk on September 24th, really from Veterans Field baseball fields to the north to the fairgrounds along Fair Street. When they're on your street and somebody's looking to do a parade, then this is where we come with that kind of thing. So just to provide clarification of why this comes to you, even though it's not really being hosted on your property. So again, the ambassadors are looking to hold their event, move from parking lot number 5, which is now occupied by buildings, to the fairgrounds. And they're looking for these three types of assistance, which include picnic tables, light standards use, and then holding a parade/walk from about 1 to 1:30 on Fair Street. The motion to provide approval for this is included in your packet. We'll also mention that because they are using the street, we continue to have folks that use your facilities need that $1.5 million of insurance, and they provide that readily, and we're set to go.
Any questions for Todd? Carrie?
They requested some police assistance. Did we have to say no to that request?
Well, this is a little bit different because they're going to be on the fairgrounds. And so we are following the same process as we've used with others where I don't have the horsepower to staff that in the appropriate way, so they're going to have to look for other alternatives. We work with them to help and find that. But this is a little bit different in that I would frankly call this more akin to wedding dance at the fairgrounds than it is a community festival like it was on parking lot number 5 and had much broader access.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Any additional questions? I was just going to point out that it seems like there's going to be some fun family activities this year. Rec program will be out there with some fun things for kids to do, and so people who are interested in more information about Oktoberfest should look at Facebook page.
it's a great thing to mention. We have partnered for a few years with the Oktoberfest group, the organizers, the ambassadors, and the rec department, and are happy to try and make those things work.
All right, hearing no further questions, the resolution on page 49 calls for approving city assistance for St. Peter Ambassadors Oktoberfest event. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Grant,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Bluefett,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, adoption of a resolution authorizing high school homecoming parade.
Mayor members, this information starts on page 50, and then the student council advisor who's helping with this, Christopher Harms, submitted a letter to us, which is on page 51, and a map on page 52. This is very, very, very similar to routes in the past for the homecoming parade. And in some ways, maybe it's a little bit easier this year with the detour because there's not as much traffic on Broadway. And so I think that's maybe a positive. And so they're looking for assistance relative to the parade that again is going to occur on September 30th. Generally, the parade will start at approximately 4:30. It will start on Lincoln Drive, go east on Broadway to 3rd Street, go south on 3rd Street to Grace, and go west on Grace back up to Lincoln Drive. They're required to have insurance just like everybody else who has a parade in the city of St. Peter, so they meet all the requirements. And the resolution providing approval is on page 53.
Any questions for Todd? The resolution on page 53 calls for approving a request by School District Number 508 to conduct a homecoming parade on city streets. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sharpstra,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Ram.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Moving on, we have an executive session planned, and there's a resolution on page 54 calling for executive sessions as authorized by state statute for discussion of real estate negotiations and union contract negotiations. If there are any questions for Todd about the resolution? Brad?
We'll be coming back into open session after.
Yes. We will.
My plan is that you will, but that will be driven by the city council. I believe that we're likely to come back in a session related to the union memorandum of understanding.
And if you could say the two addresses we need to say.
Oh, will do. So, let's see, the resolution calling for a closed session is on page 54 of the packet. If there's no further discussion, I'll call for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
And so the addresses for these are 107 West Nassau and 1225 South Washington are the real estate properties that you'll be discussing in closed session.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll call the roll. Yes, please.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Ram,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpstra.
Aye.
The resolution is approved, and we will adjourn to closed session. It is 7:29 PM. Welcome back. We are now once again in open session. It is 8:18 on September 12th, 2022. Our next item of business is the consideration of a resolution approving execution of an updated memorandum of agreement, electric with the International Union of Operating Engineers, International Union of, oh, I think we maybe have,
I did that, fix that right.
all right, it's going to be fixed in the final draft. This union agreement. Todd?
Mayor and members, included on your desks was a proposal and an offer to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the utilities, what we would typically call the utilities union. This specifically relates to one of the 4 pay scales that are included within that union agreement. This only relates to the electric lineman pay wage scale. So this would be a memorandum of agreement that essentially removes that scale from the current contract and inserts a new scale. The new scale does not change the highest pay, nor does it change the starting pay. What it does is essentially migrates your current system into a system that relates to apprentice lineman training and allows apprentice linemen to work through their training, and as they reach certain thresholds, they receive a pay increase, but the top pay for anyone that works within the department has not changed. This is something that we talked about previously, but again, we haven't had an apprentice lineman on your staff for more than 15 years. You might remember the exact number, but it's more than 15 years. And so the scale that you had previously without the need for an apprentice worked just fine. Now that we've moved forward, and as you know, we contemplated and council approved an additional position that was for an apprentice, and now it's important to have this in place. The union has seen this, they have voted to approve, and so it's before you tonight. And the request from city staff, or the recommendation, is for you to approve this memorandum of agreement.
Any questions for Todd? Hearing no further questions, the resolution before us on page 60 of the packet authorizes execution of a memorandum of understanding, electric with International Union of Operating Engineers Local 70 Utilities. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Rand,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpstra,
Aye.
Councilmember Bluefrat.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up on the agenda, we have reports, and I just want to point out that the city currently has 7 excellent part-time opportunities for employment available. If you go to www.stpetermn/employment, you can learn more about positions. We have a mechanic assistant, a rec leader, a library circulation clerk, a meter reader, a building supervisor, bus driver, and transit dispatcher. So lots of great opportunities if you're looking to work for the city. And the second thing I was going to mention was just to extend my thanks to everybody who organized Rock Bend Folk Festival. This weekend was the 31st Rock Bend, and it was amazing. The weather was beautiful, and it was great to see so many people from St. Peter and guests to our town enjoying the music and good company. So that's it for me.
Mayor members, the first one that I have isn't really a report for me, but to provide opportunity for the city council if they wanted to provide any feedback on the goal setting session that you had just a little couple of weeks back. And so wanted to provide that opportunity for you. You met, I think we walked out a little bit after 9 for the most part. No? What time was it? Was it
10.
later than
It was
that?
pretty
10?
late.
It was 10.
10?
Yeah, it was 10.
Time flies by when you're having fun. And so anyway, if folks have interest in that, there's great information provided on our website underneath the packet. And the council provided some great information, talked about a number of issues that they'll see come to fruition in the near future. I don't know if anybody else wants to talk.
Anyone want to add anything? I thought it was a great night. I think when we left at 10, everybody was still wide awake and interested and engaged in our conversations. So from my perspective anyway, it was a great evening.
All right, the next one that I have is actually, I'm going to ask Pete to come up and just give just a little bit of update about the roundabout project. That, again, the project that I'm going to ask him to talk about is the one that is currently under construction. Up until a few
Broadway.
minutes ago.
Yep.
Broadway and Sunrise, maybe.
Broadway and Sunrise,
Yeah, thanks,
yes.
Pete.
So we have utility work done on the east leg of the roundabout right now. The south and west legs are being completed this week, and we hope to have those finalized by Friday. The north area going past the fire hall are gonna begin that work next week. And so our goal with that would be to haul rock in behind that and get that really solid. We hope to have concrete started somewhere around the end of September, 1st of October, somewhere in that neighborhood. Right on schedule where we want to be with things that are going. Things are going well there. We continue to work on the detour route and signage for that. We've had a few calls and questions related to people not being able to find their way. Most of them are wandering off the detour and then get themselves in a position where they can't get back out. So we're trying to make that happen, and we have addressed some of the concerns there.
Brad?
So Pete, actually this is just brought up, some people brought up to me recently, what's gonna be, is there plans for anything in the middle of the roundabout, like, any garden
We'll
or?
have some plantings, yes.
Plantings, oh.
Yep.
Other questions? Do we have an estimated completion date for the roundabout?
We don't yet.
Okay,
We're still weather dependent, so
Sure.
if things stay like they have been now with no rain coming in, that's a contractor's dream.
right.
Everything else turns brown and complicates things, but if it stays like this, it should be expedited.
All right. Fingers crossed.
Yep.
We just want to thank folks for their patience. We know it's a pain. We understand, but it'll be a great improvement once it's completed, and I think people will find it saving time for them every day.
Mhm.
Madam Mayor, that's all that I have for you for tonight.
Reports from anyone else? Carrie and then Emily.
Just along the lines of your Rock Bend comment, I was really watching how, the layout of Rock Bend and the changes that they made with the improvements that were at the park, and just the sidewalk for accessibility. That was such an improvement, and seeing folks with limited mobility or strollers really navigating that much easier than I've seen in years past. And this was a very successful Rock Bend in terms of the amount of people that came out. I think the organizers said this was their highest attendance. So with that many people, having all those walkways is really important. So it was really nice to see those improvements and the way that they benefited an event like Rock Bend and for the people who attended. Thank you.
Emily?
I just wanted to go back to, so we talked about the facade renovation earlier in the meeting, and I realized, so I think Todd, you said that HPC and EDA had weighed in on that and had approved this for us or for us to approve. And I just wanted to say that I really value all those committees that are working really hard and having those discussions before it comes to us. That really helps me personally with some of those decisions, and I like just remembering, and maybe this is good for any listeners, just that, those are community-driven committees. There's members of our community that are serving on those boards, and if I remember right, are we still short on some positions, or have all of those been filled?
No, we do have positions available, so.
Well, then there's a plug for positions that are still available on our boards, and just note that citizens of our community have a voice on those, and at least for me, that's really helpful when that comes to us in those conversations, knowing that, oh, this board has had this conversation and approved this and recommends it to us. So I just, for the process part of it, I wanted to highlight that for anyone who's listening.
Thank you, good point. Anybody else? I'm gonna take us back to Rock Bend one more time and thank, because we haven't talked about it enough, thank the Masons for that shelter they provided. It took a while to get here. There were supply chain issues. We waited and waited on it, but it was a wonderful addition as another stage for Rock Bend. So if there are any Masons watching, thank you so much. All right, I don't hear any other comments coming from members of the council, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.